Hi, grade 12s. Welcome to Grad Week. Woo! This is my university cap because it was the closest thing to the colors I had for AOB because my other one is blue because I went to Santa FX. But we have a whole bunch of fun things coming for you this week. So pay attention to emails from the school and to Instagram, and hopefully we'll see some of you this week. And we're so excited. So we're going to do as much as we can. So pay attention to that. And we're so proud of you guys. Okay. So weekly update. So I don't know if you've been paying attention, but America's kind of burning a little bit right now. There's a lot of riots going on. And so we're going to focus on that a bit this week because really it kind of fits in with what we're doing, looking at like government law and things like that. So there's 3 videos that I want you to watch. There is some readings that I want you to do in the textbook. There is a Teams meeting on Wednesday, so I can see all of you guys. And then the assignment you're going to do is what is the difference between a riot and a protest and chaos? And it's a Google form. So you need to watch those videos before you can do the Google form. And then we talk about the role of the charter in Canada this week and the Governor General and the Senate. So I'll go through the PowerPoint. So exploring government choices and liberalism, chapter 13. We only have like 3 chapters left. Okay, so we're looking at parliamentary democracy, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Constitution Act, and the Quebec Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms. So at AOB, our lovely school, right? I mean, I can't search your stuff right now, but did you know that a principal can actually search your locker whenever they want? And so what rights do you have as a student? Now, under the School Act, which is a government document, principals, teachers, we actually have more rights than police officers within our school. So if we suspect that you've done anything, we can actually search through your bag, search your phone, search your locker. It's rare that we'll search your phone because I really don't care that much unless we really think there's incriminating evidence on there. But we can search your locker anytime you want because it's our property, okay? And so in school, it's actually called in loco parentis, and it's a term that basically means that while you're in school, we are your parents, which is why we can basically search you anytime we want. And so like Constable Darren doesn't have that right, but we do. And so as a student, you can like request for us to call your parents, which we will, no problem. But we can look through your locker and we can search your bag and stuff like that. And hopefully none of you have ever had that, but the police need like a big reason to be able to do it. But as a student, teachers, because of this in local apprentice, we actually have more rights than that. So to what extent do democratic government practices reflect the values of liberalism? So here's Trudeau. Okay, our governor. We got, this is the Senate. I think it's not. Yeah, that's the Senate. So who is the Governor General? So this is the Queen's Representative of Canada. These are 2 former Governor Generals. They basically make sure that we have a Prime Minister in place. They approve the bills. They work with the Prime Minister. They host foreign guests. They give out awards. It's kind of like it's like having the Queen in Canada, but we can't have the Queen in Canada, right? Because she lives in Great Britain. And so some people feel like this is kind of a waste of money because like, do we really need it? Are they really that important? And like they're a dignitary and like they actually have a really cool like it's at the Citadel in Quebec City. They have this like really cool building that it's like fortified by these ancient walls that have been rebuilt up, and it's actually a like military base still, and they like can live there and they have like to host people, and it's quite nice. But like, do we need it in Canada kind of thing? So the way that the Canadian government is laid out is that the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is above all, okay? And then there's 3 levels. The legislative branch, which is Parliament, and that's the Senate and the House of Commons. And then the Governor General kind of works between the legislative branch and the executive branch, because the executive branch is the Prime Minister, who has to be elected, and then the ministers who he or she appoints, and then they all sit in the House of Commons. So the Prime Minister sits in the House of Commons, whereas like in the United States, the president doesn't sit in Congress, okay? And then we have the judicial, which is completely separate. And so like that's the Supreme Court and that's the law. And so that's separate from just the executive and the legislative, which is good because the whole idea is that it kind of allows the law to be completely separate from the government, and it also holds the government accountable for different actions. Okay. So how does a bill become a law? Well, it gets presented in the House of Commons, which they can't do right now because Parliament's suspended because COVID. And then it goes to Senate. And then the Senate has to approve it as well. And then it goes to the Governor General, and the Governor General signs off of it. So it's not the Prime Minister who signs off on a bill. They vote it in the House of Commons. The Senate will pretty much always approve it because if it's been passed in the House of Commons, it means that it's gone past the Prime Minister's government, which means that the Senate, because they're appointed by the Prime Minister, would approve it. Okay. And I've never heard of a Governor General not signing off on a bill. But the whole idea of it is that it doesn't have to go all the way back to the Queen, who's been around for a long time. So that's why I say the Queen, before it becomes law. And then it becomes law. Okay, so the Senate is 105 seats. They're chosen by the Prime Minister. They can have a job until they're 75. They can approve a bill, cancel it, or send it back to the House for changes. They usually don't cancel it if they have a problem with it. They just send it back and they ask stuff to be adjusted on it. But a lot of people feel that the Senate is kind of useless as well. And so it's called the Triple E Senate, or that like people think we should change about it. Now, the Triple E Senate means that should senators be elected instead of appointed, because the Prime Minister just appoints them and then they have a job until they turn 25, which seems insane. I mean, I don't want to work until I'm 75. And then every province does not have an equal number of seats. And so does that seem fair, even though it's like based on population? And then effective, should senators be able to oppose the House of Commons? Because like I said, they don't really oppose the House of Commons. And so if we want to hold our government accountable, shouldn't we actually have a way to hold them accountable rather than, oh, the House passed it, so I guess we will too, you know? So, and as well, you need to look at how should politicians vote. So within the Parliament, generally people follow party lines. And so if the Liberal Party says you need to vote this way, you better vote that way, or they're going to make you basically leave the party. Or should you be voting the way that your constituents want? Because they're the ones who voted you in. So if I voted you in Parkland County, Spruce Grove, Stony Plain, Alberta, and the majority of the people in this area want you to vote a certain way, should you follow what your constituents want, or do you follow the party line? Because sometimes it's not the same thing. And so, but a lot of people want to get elected again, but they also don't want to be kicked out of their party. And since your votes aren't private, they're made public, so it shows who voted for what bill. It's kind of a tough line to follow, okay? How do we challenge laws? So if you feel like a law is violating the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, you have to take it to the Supreme Court. So like I said, this is completely separate from the executive and the legislative branch. It has nothing to do with the Prime Minister, and the Supreme Court will rule on a decision. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms is meant to like protect everybody within Canada. But if you feel like, especially like hate speech or like discrimination because of a religion or something like that. So for example, there was a Sikh man who became an RCMP officer. Now Sikh men wear like a turban covering, which obviously a Mountie hat would not fit over. And so he basically said, this is violating my religious rights if you tell me to take off my turban to wear the hat. And so he challenged it, and because it was part of a requirement of the uniform, and they basically said, okay, that's okay. You can have the badge on your turban because it's not respecting your religious rights. But there was kind of an outcry against it because it's like, well, but you know, you're following a tradition, and like you chose to become an RCMP officer and so on and so forth. And so the Supreme Court basically looks at violations of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They wouldn't look at like, oh, I robbed a store. It's like bigger stuff. Okay. The rest of that stuff would just go to like civic law courts. And then various rights are protected by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So LGBTQ people, Métis, First Nations, Quebecois, Inuit, and basically everybody within Canada. So anybody who is an immigrant to Canada is also protected by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is pretty cool and pretty rare. It's a very rare thing that like everybody living in Canada has this protection. I just need a sip of water. Okay. So what I want you to do this week, watch the weekly update, which is hopefully what you're doing right now. And then there are 3 videos I want you to watch. There are 3 different news sources, okay? One is an Australian one. That's the first one. One is Jimmy Kimmel. And then the last one is, I think it's CSNBC. So it looks at three kind of different versions of the riots that are currently going on in America because of the killing of George Floyd, which was, I think, last Monday. So if you haven't seen that in the news, you might want to like look at some stuff online. But he was a black man who was killed by a white police officer in what many people are saying is police brutality. He was trying to pay for something using a forged $20 bill. It's unclear if he knew it was forged or if he just had the dollar bill and was trying to use it. But regardless, when he tried to leave, the cops that were called, one of them knelt on his neck for 8 minutes and 42 seconds. 6 of which of that he was actually saying, I can't breathe. You're hurting me. Please help me. I can't breathe. They continued kneeling on his neck. After about 5 or 6 minutes, he was unresponsive and they still continued to kneel on his neck and then he died. And since then, there have been a plethora of riots that have erupted in the United States for Black Lives Matter and to end police brutality. And so it's pretty intense in the States right now. So it's something that you would be interested and looking at. Jimmy Kimmel is obviously a very left-wing comedian, and so he's quite anti-Trump, and you'll see that within his video. And he talks a bit about Trump's tweets and kind of what he's been doing this week. Okay. This is a lie again. I forgot to change this. I did it with my 30-1s too. I'm so sorry. But we will have a Teams meeting this week. We'll have it on Wednesday just because I want to say congratulations to all of you. So it won't be huge, won't be long. I just want to be able to see your guys' faces and say happy grad week, okay? Oh no, what happened to my other slide? That's weird. That's really weird. Sorry, the last slide is the complete slide. And so the assignment that you're doing this week is on Google Forms. And so you need to watch those 3 videos and then you need to... and then just complete the questions. And so there's a couple different questions on there about like what is a riot? What is a protest? What's the difference? And then also some stuff on censorship. And so like what rights does the federal government have to restrict freedoms with protests and riots and things like that. So I'm trying to kind of keep it on that. But this is a Harry Potter celebration because I'm so proud of you guys because you did it. And this is the craziest year ever. And who would have thought we'd be like this at grad week in June? So I'm proud of you and I'm happy for you because you did it. We only have a few weeks left and you're doing so good. So I will talk to you all on Wednesday at our Teams meeting and I'll post the link tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.